Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the podcast that shares ideas on how to upgrade your lead generation. Here is your host, Glenn Schmeltzley.
Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot. Today, we're diving into what to do in situations where growth can't be hacked. But first, I'd love to hear your response to what you've heard here. You can tweet me at Funnel Reboot or use that on Instagram. You can leave listener feedback at 613-703-7073. I love hearing from you in any event. So to today's topic, the phrase growth hacking has definitely had its ups and downs in the marketing field. In some cases, it's put people atop the Inc. 5000, but in other cases, it has developed the kinds of business that just can't grow consistently or sustainably. Some growth hackers bring unrealistic expectations, like trying to double a company's growth in 6 months when their average sales cycle is 18. But today we're going to talk about the areas where you just aren't able to growth hack, mainly because the industry itself is only taking shape. Today, our guest is a person who thrives in growing those types of business. And he's also pretty big on biohacking, artificial intelligence, and neuroscience. He splits his time between Ottawa and the east coast of Canada, where he likes to think about and write about optimal living, and he's also helping companies in this space. Listen as he talks about the ways that you can use customer feedback and early influencer campaigns with journalists to start building your marketing engine. Please join me in welcoming Ned Nadima. I'm pleased to welcome Ned Nadima. Welcome to the show, Ned.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. And you and I are about to get into what might be a rather hot topic. We're going to talk about growth marketing. Some have referred to it as growth hacking. Maybe you could start off by giving me just a short and sweet statement of what you mean by that phrase or what it means to you.
A growth marketer to me is somebody that has the space and resources within the company to experiment ways to reach and attract the ideal customers for the company, outside the traditional sales and marketing unit.
Well done. And I know that you've got experience all the way from large companies on down to startup range companies. And I know you've even worked with some organizations that are pre-revenue because they're doing R&D for something that could be used later on, right?
That's right.
So let's kind of first, before we can actually say if growth marketing is all good or all bad, let's try and figure out where we're talking along that spectrum. So when are you used to hearing companies saying we need growth marketing? Which stage of the ones that I mentioned, where does it normally come in?
Usually it's when the founder is still in charge and he sees most startups just going from 0 to 1 at a crazy space, and he wonders, okay, can we find somebody that can help us take us to the promised land of the unicorn land? Like I've seen that coming from early stage founders all the way to Series A. Although after Series A to the IPO stage, you usually nail down your marketing and sales activities, right? Because at that point you're kind of growing at a steady pace. That the dream of the growth marketer is more okay. Let's find a VP that can actually build a real program for us. But before that, there's still that need to find somebody that can just build that hockey stick for you as fast as possible.
Sure. And I'm glad you mentioned founders because, this is something that I suppose begins in someone's gut, maybe not, up in their intellectual self. What is probably behind it, you tell me if you disagree, is a person saying, we are so small right now, it's not even tenable, right? Like we don't even have, we talk about burn rate and, the fact that the company may not even be around unless it grows, right? So it's under that growth imperative. And I guess the founder is thinking, yes, I need that growth to be by uh, a very high multiple. The percentages must be triple digit, quadruple digit, quintuple digit in order for us to even reach revenue levels and
Mm-hmm.
profit levels that
Mm-hmm.
even make us look like a like
A
a
real company.
a real company. Yeah.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
so they want to do that, but I think you're probably going to caution against some of the problems with then moving to the next step of saying, well, I can just hire somebody that'll do this.
Absolutely, because marketing isn't magic, right? Most people say marketing is most people say
Really?
most people say marketing is half art and half science,
Yeah.
which is absolutely true. But anybody in the field knows that almost every single project is it it's very specific. Like so, I would say that every single project is fairly unique, as in just because email marketing worked for one company doesn't mean it might work for another one. In fact, I have a great example. When I was working with a company targeting manufacturing managers, for some reason, picture manufacturing managers are folks that great citizens. They wake up every day. They show up at the manufacturing plant at 7 a.m. with their lunchbox, and they leave by 8 p.m. Right, tired, and then they show up the next day. These people don't get many emails from strangers asking them to jump on the 30-minute call. So for some reason, email marketing to them was the best way to reach out because they would actually jump on the call. They were looking forward to talk to strangers. But um, when I uh, when I worked with a company selling to engineering managers, for some reason, engineering managers have this view of marketing as pure harassment, right? So as soon as you would, try with the email marketing, it just wasn't going because they want to do their own research. They want to be able to find things for themselves and reach out only when and if they have questions, right? Just that shows you that different techniques from one and doesn't apply for others. Now going back to growth marketing, most of the most famous growth marketing examples are in in B2C, and for a reason because B2C is about psychology. Like okay, if I how can I increase my virality coefficient in order to just like get that loop going. In B2B, people buy B2B software to solve specific problems. Just because Glenn bought, I, I don't know, HubSpot to manage his email list doesn't mean I have to. I might choose to go with Mailchimp, and that'll be just fine, right? So so aligning the incentives so that people can actually, not only love your product but also share that gospel to everybody else in the industry. Like you need to align the right incentives, and in order to find these incentives, you need proper experimentation. So and experimentation can take months. That's why I initially say that a growth marketer has space to operate experimentation, rather instead of expecting the growth marketer to show up with a magical formula to just make things happen. They need to find what's working, what's not working, and that takes time.
Yes, and you've highlighted some things there that, frankly, even if there's a person who puts out their shingle as a growth marketer, you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about problems that actually lay in the founder's hands and that are baked into uh, what's being expected before that person even shows up for the job. You've already talked about, the founder may hear about a tactic and think that tactic that happened over in that company in that, consumer space can translate over to our industry.
Yes.
Okay, we know it probably doesn't.
No.
Secondly, they think that the person who might have pulled off great numbers, even in a similar kind of space, that
Mm-hmm.
they will have the same, you know, uh,
Results.
results here, maybe because, we'll switch to their tools or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Again, that seems to be a fallacy,
It is.
because you can make a HubSpot work in one company and a MailChimp work in another company. It doesn't matter so much that, those tools are in place. It There's more to it.
Absolutely.
Right. So these problems, and I guess the last one comes down to the job posting. So, like, what are some
Yes.
of the crazy things that you've seen on job postings that tell you that this um, romance with the idea of growth hacking is
Yeah.
is a bad idea?
So the job posting described 5 different jobs, 5 different skills, and they want it to be within one person. Essentially, a unicorn, right? Where the person knows everything about copywriting, knows everything about web design in order to build websites. Is very analytical, which is funny because you want somebody who's creative, come up with experiments, but at the same time you want somebody very analytical to go to the groundwork, almost down to the engineering level of focus, right? And there's this idea that you have just this one person that will be able to like manage every single aspect of your marketing, from copywriting, design, all the way to the implementation. And if he has any ideas that should be implemented within the product, it should be somehow able to come up with a small version of it, because we just cannot duplicate engineering resources. So the marketer needs to be able to implement his own ideas, and that's just wrong. In fact, when you look at companies like Uber, there's a reason, like Uber, Facebook, even Airbnb, they had growth teams, right?
Yep.
There's a reason why
Yep.
they call it growth teams, because it's a team made of a writer, a designer, like software developers. It's a team made of people with different skills, with the sole task of trying different experiments. They have access to a set of users, and they just try experiments. I have a friend at Uber that works for the growth team, and they had, like, I believe, hundreds to 500,000 users that they could change the UI of the app whenever, and nobody would notice, obviously. But based on the experiment, these experiments were guiding the growth. But that was a team, because a software engineer telling you, "Hey, I'm on the growth team." As a marketer, you'd be like, "What are you doing there?" You
Right.
know? But that's how it should be. And this job posting, expecting to have all of these people within one, are kind of delusional.
Yeah, and you've highlighted things. So these are usually within a SaaS setting, and I guess the other thing that you want to be careful you don't just assume is that however that product is architected, it allows for people to have a growth team job. Not every, if it wasn't built that way from the beginning, you may be in for a lot of hard work before you can even be set for experimenting.
Exactly. And growth is like the entire company has to be built around this idea of growth. And that's the thing that people don't get, right? Like, from the human resources, you recruit people that can actually grow into bigger roles, ideally.
Yep.
From a product standpoint, you design the architecture so that you can actually scale, right? Same thing in marketing. Like, the entire company is this small ball that needs to grow. But there's this attitude, especially around engineering focused companies, that the real work is the engineering work, and marketing is just like on the side. But yet we expect marketing to generate the leads so that we can actually have sales and grow as a company. It doesn't make any sense. Um, so
Yeah, well, if you are a founder or you're an early member of a team that has thought like that, and marketing is an afterthought, um, I would imagine that you're probably suffering already. You probably have, it's very easy to make a product that the world doesn't care about. So, right. So
it is
if you haven't already stitched that into your very DNA,
right.
you should realize that hiring a single person is not going to turn it around.
Yeah.
And you, to go further than that, to hire a single person and then have very unrealistic goals for them. Now,
Yes.
you're really, you need to look in the mirror. You need to look at how you're doing things.
But you
So
know
that,
what, Glenn?
yeah.
There's something about early stage companies that makes life difficult for marketers. First of all, number one, like marketers are the only people within a company that have to report to somebody that doesn't really understand what they do, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Engineers report to engineers, designers they report to
Usually.
designers
Yep.
usually, but marketers usually report to the founder or CEO, and they often don't really get what marketing means. Now, the second thing is that in the early days, the founders leverage his network with the investors, for introduction in order to get some sales, right? And as you get these early sales going through referral, um, you know, people tell you, get some sort of marketing going to actually increase the number of leads because soon you will run out of your network, right? And when they see that they can send, three introduction emails and then get a sale, and they pay this marketer X amount of dollars, and he's doing stuff that for the early days doesn't generate much.
It doesn't have that same kick.
Exactly, exactly. And and that shortens the marketer's runway because now he has to show something. He has he has to show some sort of like program that's working. And most marketers, what stop thinking long term. Investing in the proper SEO, investing in the proper tags. For the well-being of the company in the long term, and they start looking for the small hack, right? So even the marketer gets stuck in that circle because
Right. If
with the
if those are the metrics that they are being held to, yes.
yeah, with the pressure to perform, you start looking for hacks as well. So it's a
Right.
vicious
Which
cycle.
which sacrifice long term for a quick short term hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it reminds me a little bit of, if we think about how a 10-speed bicycle works. So if the founder is the one who starts riding the bike and he's in first gear, he finds a single investor or even an associate and,
Mm-hmm.
mentions to them, I'm making something in this field. That can quickly get him, moving. And so the bike went from stationary to moving. Wow, this seems like rapid progress.
Mm-hmm.
But marketing only begins maybe at about the fifth gear, right?
Yes.
And you
Yes.
cannot do, that's not a scalable endeavor where everything with marketing is meant to scale. So,
Exactly.
you have to realize that these two things are different. The marketer, you may look at the bike and it's moving just a little bit faster than it was a moment ago, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to appreciate that marketer is moving it from fifth to sixth to seventh to eighth, and that's what they're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
You will only be able to, looking backwards over how much distance you've covered,
Exactly.
appreciate
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing. So before we kind of finish on bashing, the concept of growth marketing,
Mm-hmm.
um, when it comes to timelines and promises that are made, um,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that B2B people get sucked into thinking that growth hacking means that everything is done super fast, even faster than, for example, what their industry can take? I've sat in meetings where people have said things like, "Well, we want to get 100% growth in 6 months.
Wow.
Um, that means that we're going to get a lot more leads now." And I'll ask them, "Well, what's your average sales cycle?" "Oh, 12 to 18 months."
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so even if you did everything you could right now, your 6 month target won't show any of that. You'll just
Yeah.
have you'll just have some open opportunities, no
Exactly.
closed sales,
Exactly. And
right?
uh, and and sometimes they get very realistic about the sales cycle, so they turn into the lead generation because they're like, okay, just generate as many leads as possible, right?
Yep.
Don't worry about the sales cycle.
Quality or yeah.
Yeah, but the issue is that you will feel good, Glenn, if every single day I had you three demos for half an hour where you're gonna talk about your services, and then they'll have some sort of competition going. But after a month, of talking to 3 different people every single day, and with like no sales, nothing to show. That's when you realize that, oh, okay, maybe talking to as many people as possible isn't, the secret. Um, most most companies are okay with the sales cycle because there are things that you just cannot move, right? Like if the proposal needs to be reviewed by legal, there's not much that you can do, right? You just have to like make sure that you have the resources in place to make things faster. But everybody thinks that their industry within their like the space, there's some sort of secret to get people interest of like in the product, right? So if you're a software that sells to marketers, right? Despite marketers being bombarded by all kinds of solutions every single day, you are convinced that within this niche of like B2B marketing, people need this, and I'm sure that we can come up with an idea that will get all of them to look at what we're doing. And that's the big fallacy that once they understand that sales is going to take time, they don't understand that even lead generation, finding the right people will take time. It's like they look at the empty calendar and they're like, why don't we have 10 calls per day? Like, what's missing? What are we doing wrong? But sometimes it's just that nobody knows you in the space, and you need to build that reputation, build that trust, and that takes time.
Yes.
Uh, but
Uh, I think this is, part of what can maybe save a person out there who's, living this is to help remind their boss that marketing isn't just there to uh, do the outward presentation. A lot of this, you talked about how many things have to go right. You have to be able to do the demo right. You have to be able to get the leads right. Um, let's take it one step further back. You have to make sure the product is right. So, the people that I look to for this, uh, particularly with technology products, are guys
mhm,
like Eric Rees, Lean Startup, or Ash
mhm,
Moria with Starting Lean. Um,
mhm,
they make the point that you have to be prepared to look right to the core of the company and ask things like, has the product even got a problem solution fit? And if it does have that, have we moved on to true product market fit? And
that's
have
a tough
we,
conversation.
right? And it's very tough. But
Mhm,
to your point about, if you look at that empty calendar and you don't see things that are happening, how those authors made me think of it was, they said, well, you will be able to do some accounting. You will be able to count some things, like even the number of people who said no, or, the number of attempts you made that started to go right, but then went wrong.
mhm,
Look at that. That is an area that's ripe for experimenting. And
right.
if you're ready to hear what that experiment will, bring
So
out,
yeah,
yeah, the result, you may be ready to change your company, even though that's going to make things drag out longer. But that may
mhm,
be the thing you need to do right now if you're ever going to succeed.
yes, that's very true. That's very true.
Um,
And that
you have some experience with companies that are at these different stages. I'd love for you to tell me, maybe at the
mhm,
very early stages,
yeah,
you've got some experience in the biotech industry,
yes,
and what are some of the challenges? Because I think they're an easy way for us to all identify with how it's possible to m- miss the market, to
absolutely.
or to make something that the market isn't quite ready for,
Yes,
right?
and biotech is like the perfect example. So I'm involved with a couple of companies looking to find therapeutics for aging. Essentially, help us, live longer, but in pure in pure health. So there's a couple of things here because investors and about a lot of wealthy people are willing to invest in longevity, right?
Yes.
But um, investors, just like many people, follow the crowd, as in, they cannot sense, okay, is 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 the space right now? Are we in a point where we can actually come up with like new therapeutics, or is it just like all a fad and a bunch of buzzwords? When it comes to marketing, in the early stage with an R&D focused company, there's no end customer to target for now, right? So the goal is to target the right investors and the right attention. Attention here defined as the right media that will talk about you in a positive light in order to influence the investors, right? So, in but when it comes to getting the right attention in the aging field, talking to mainstream media about aging, they talk about immortality, right?
Right.
And everybody,
Or,
everybody
or
that has
we shoot off into really different, people who are cryo frozen, and we start to
exactly,
leave the scientific medicine world very quickly.
and we go into sci-fi, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And and as soon as a field is branded as sci-fi, just some weirdos hoping for immortality, you know nothing moves.
next. Yeah,
Exactly, right? So 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 as a marketer, working closely with these journalists whenever they reach out for like interviews and like podcasts and stuff like that, in order to really help frame the conversation about old age, right? Because I tell them, in fact, we are working on a piece about it that we're going to call the aging fallacy. I tell them that there's a big romantic lie around aging, right? We see old age as like wisdom. We picture ourselves like old in a table full of kids and grandkids, and we are able to go play soccer with them and live like we live today, just with some wrinkles and like gray hair. But that's not the case for almost like 80% of all people out there.
right.
Most people suffer from all kinds of diseases, cancer, dementia, you know, muscle loss, and they lose their independence. And when we talk about fighting aging, that's what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Recently, with all the big backlash on billionaires, whenever a billionaire invests in an aging company, there's this big headline that goes out, billionaires looking for immortality life, and then and the entire conversation goes around social injustice, as in there's going to be two classes of people: some wealthy people that will live forever, and then us, the mortal, that will just die because we don't have the resources. And
Yes.
that's a marketing problem, because that's a pure communication challenge. The issue has been framed properly. So
Yeah.
part of working with a R&D focused company as a marketer is to help educate not only the mass, but like the people that will influence the likelihood of the company to survive, which are journalists and the media. So we spent a lot of time, talking to journalists from like all kinds of organizations in order to educate them around the field, so that whenever they write about us, they don't make us look like some weird transhumanists that are dreaming about merging with AI to become superhuman. We are talking about helping old people live healthier lives.
Yeah, and I mean, it is growth marketing if we just use that. I think it was Ash Mario with you start with problem solution fit, and it sounds like this kind of PR, and it kind of borders on maybe media relations or analyst relations, but you are helping frame the problem.
Exactly.
And that's what the marketer is needed for right then.
Yeah.
I think the only alternative, and from inside these companies, would be leaving it to a biotechnologist or a scientist, and that's probably not a good idea.
That's not a good idea, because they talk about the latest research, and so I will remind you. Picture 2006, when Al Gore came up with the documentary in climate change.
Yes, Inconvenient Truth.
Yes, the documentary focused on why it was important to tackle climate change. The document wasn't focused around the latest in electric cars. I don't believe Tesla was even out back then. right? The documents did not focus about the latest technology in like the solar panel and stuff like that. It focused on the problem, because it wasn't made by scientists that were working in the problem. The issue with especially biology, scientists come up and they talk about the latest protein that we think might solve the issue, and most people just don't follow because they don't have the background to actually understand what they mean. So
Yes.
to go back to the classical marketing challenge of storytelling, telling people like telling the right stories in a way that frame the problem, that people understand why it's important, why you should care about it, and why these companies are doing great things. That's like the marketing challenge right now, because yeah,
Perfect.
because
And I'm
yeah.
going to put you on the spot here for a second, but tell me, do you think, because we both believe that there is some good to the methods that a growth marketer has, do you even think that there are some numbers or some results that a person in that company at that really early pre-commercial stage can look to and use growth marketing to make it a bit better?
Yes, numbers, numbers as in results. Um, hmm,
Maybe
maybe
positive journalist stories. Maybe.
positive journalist stories, but I can tell you right now, every single marketer is in this space right now. The biggest thing, the biggest thing that's keeping them up at night is how do you want to name the space? It sounds very silly, but like
Yeah.
you are a
No,
marketer, right?
there will become a category. So there's a
Exactly,
race right now to get the category.
right. Like, do you call it anti-aging? Do you call it longevity? Do you call it aging? And like there's like all kinds of like names, but like finding the right category, you it enables you first of all as a company to define the category, and then get people just like HubSpot did with inbound marketing, right? You
Yes.
define the category, like it's great, but when it comes to longevity slash aging, what's going to be the right words, which company is going to own that, and then like tell the story so the people can actually jump in. That's these are the type of challenges that marketers in early stage companies like that are facing.
And I think it's true that at those early stages, given that not all of them survive, maybe what we're saying is that there is a place for growth marketing, and it's a really important one at that stage because it could make the difference between them surviving to the next stage or not.
Yes, and I will add there's a place for ethical growth marketing because else you end up being Theranos.
Yeah, and Theranos is a very bad one in this
Yes,
field. So yeah, let's not forget that we're not saying that somebody has to break, the with the, let's say, the covenants that the science needs to be right. They don't need to um, try to do anything that, especially with privacy. My goodness, health information, the need for that data to be private, it holds a person who's doing growth marketing to a higher standard.
yes, like the type of claims, the type of data that you can actually use to run experiments. That's going to be the biggest thing in marketing, because we talk about running experiments, right? Most companies right now in the B2B or B2C world will use the user data to run experiments. But when it comes to biotech, you can't just look at somebody's DNA sequence in order to like assess. So like that's like beyond wrong, right? So marketing, science marketing. I think that's just going to be science marketing, because beyond biotech, there are other fields, even like climate change and stuff like that, where marketers need to be able to talk about the science in a way that people understand, yet maintain like stay ethical and like stay true to what's happening. What's happening?
I have some very cautionary stories on,
Mm-hmm.
especially in health. So
Mm-hmm.
and you and I have both said that this needs to be done at scale, usually at some point down the road when you can prove that there is a non-zero value to getting a prospect in, you are ready to do paid media campaigns so that you can look for the cost of acquisition and compare it against that value and get a positive ROI. But there, the warnings are very clearly there, especially in things like paid media. Anybody noticing in the last 2 years has seen that the platforms will step in quickly to take entire parts of health or wellness out of what they're willing to let you advertise on. And even if you can get a way around that doesn't involve using their platforms, you will still run afoul of things like Google Analytics terms of service if you're caught using personally identifiable data in any campaign, right, where it's being spread. So here again is the need for, and it's an edge case, but this is the kind of thing that will require ethics for whatever a person who's doing growth has. And this is maybe where the word hacker is not the best, because a hacker sounds like someone who's just going to rip through regulations and cut corners to get, to optimize the number that they're aiming at. But I think if we flip this around for a second, maybe you'd agree, a growth marketer with that idea of experimentation and a resilience to the way that they do things, even when all those blocks are put in their way, they find a way around.
They find a way, because I believe the biggest, the number one skill of a growth marketer is self-awareness. You need to be aware, first of all, about the resources, the time frame that you have available in the company, but also, who you are dealing with, right? Like the way you would run experiments to lawyers is completely different that you would run experiments for e-commerce store, right? So self-awareness, especially for growth marketers, that's very key, because understanding what you have at your disposal may essentially changes the game. And someone that doesn't understand that, because they read blogs and then they saw some experiments that HubSpot ran, will not be able. I'll give you one example. I have a friend in the marketing field. It didn't last long, because you read experiments about HubSpot. HubSpot came up with this thing they call engineering marketing, where when they were getting started, they built this tool that would rate people's websites from an SEO standpoint, right? So you'll get that score, and then after that, you're in the email drip, and most people turned out to sign up because they wanted to boost their SEO. Great, but when you work with at a small company where engineering resources are tied into product development, you can't just show up there and be, hey, let's actually build this this web scraper that will do these things. You need to be able to look at your environment and make decisions based on what you have available to you right now, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be the big differentiator between growth marketers that are actually able to drive results and growth marketers that will just burn out and most likely leave the field after 3, 4, 5 stints that were not successful.
Right. But it sounds like in that last case, you start at the right end of it. You start at the end where you say, what is achievable with resources I have? Not, I'm going to go and promise that hockey stick and later figure out how I get there.
Exactly. And that's on us, right? That's on us.
Yeah.
Because, growth marketers are well paid, right? But you sign up to deliver crazy numbers, you do sign up to deliver crazy numbers, just like a VP of sales. So being able to actually sign up to what's feasible, it's key. Growth marketers need to be able to learn how to negotiate the worth at the same time signing up to something that's actually doable.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a very old dark phrase about that saying, we sometimes make the rope with which we hang ourselves. We have to be careful that we don't do that.
It is true, sadly, it is true.
Ned, I've really enjoyed talking about growth marketing with you. If people want to reach out and find out more about you and what you do, where can they go?
I'm very active on Twitter at Ned Nadima. And you can always add me on LinkedIn and message me. I respond to everybody. So
perfect. And I will add, for anybody who wants to check out Ned's Twitter account, it's got a beautiful array of, there's everything from the science things that he's talked about with Biotech. There's also some great observations on the future in general. And look, you always seem to find some really good quotes. And, I'm always happy, especially on a Monday morning, to open my Twitter feed and find a nice quote from you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Glenn. This has been fun.
I really appreciate this. And listener, I hope you've appreciated it. That's all that we're going to cover today. But if you like what you've heard, and I would hope that you do, that you share it with someone who could benefit from getting Ned's take on growth marketing. And I hope that you've taken away something that helps you make your lead generation even better.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter at Funnel Reboot. If you like what you've heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.